I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube, joined by my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. We're here to discuss White Buffalo, starring Charles Bronson. I gotta tell you, Butch, I love how this starts off with a dream sequence. Sorry, didn't you hear me?
No, I didn't. I said you love how it starts off, and that's the last thing I heard.
Oh, sorry. I love how this starts off with a dream sequence.
Yeah, I was, really my only complaint about this film is the obviously fake White Buffalo. I understand it's what 75 or so. I mean, we didn't have CGI back then, but it was I was reading as I normally do. I was reading the Wikipedia article, and people were just trashing this. I'm like, did we watch the same film? This is not Hamlet. This is not Shakespeare, but this is pretty darn good film. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I was like, wow, this is a lot better than I thought. Because I'd read a few of the reviews, and it's like, this isn't that bad. I mean,
there's actually some historical accuracy in this movie because Charles Bronson, who's playing Wild Bill Hickok, you see Bronson put on these glasses. Well, Wild Bill Hickok wore glasses like that, which is really cool to see that Bronson went to the extent of being accurate of how Hickok would dress. And I agree with you that is the White Buffalo the prettiest looking thing in this movie? No, it's not. But I think it gets the point across because they do a very. I hate to compare it to Jaws, but I guess that's the best thing I could somewhat compare this to, where though it's not in the water, obviously, with the shark in Jaws rarely worked. With the White Buffalo, I don't think they were having that problem in the movie. I'm not sure, but it's only gonna look so real.
Yeah, like you limit your viewing of it, and they sure tried. After I really started paying attention to it, you could the quick edits, the sound going back and forth. I mean, they were trying to cover it up, but like I said, I grew up during that time. I remember the 70s and early 80s. Special effects. People don't realize how much special effects has increased in like the last 30 years. I mean, like him or not, George Lucas and ILM really jump started special effects. But even back then, I mean, if you look at the first Star Wars movie, people don't understand how long they worked on that and how much work in the special effects alone. So, and the point, while the movie is called White Buffalo, the point isn't about whether the White Buffalo character, whatever you want to call it, looks real. It's about Wild Bill and Crazy Horse, or Worm, if you prefer, and the story it tells. And so, I would kind of chuckle every time it'd come on, but then I'd get right back to the story, which to me was much more important and much more interesting.
Yeah, it gets into Crazy Horse, who is what is. It also gets into it gets into two things really. It gets into Wild Bill and how infamous he's become, and really that was Wild Bill at the end of his life too. I think that's another. I love how a lot of the westerns you watch, some of them, even though they're telling a story, it do try to be historically accurate with the characters they're talking about, especially when it's a real life one. So here's Wild Bill Hickok, who was a famous lawman, and he's dreaming about this white buffalo on this train. And again, this is one of my favorite opening sequences in a western with Bronson, where um, he, he pulls out his guns and he's shooting the bed above it. I'm like, and the buffalo in the dream does look a bit menacing. It does look terrifying.
Yeah, that was pretty. I can't remember the fake name he was using on the train, but yeah, he whips him out and he's going at it, and I'm thinking, okay, right away there must not be anybody up there, but it shows right away. It shows you, and from what I'm no scholar, I'm no historian. I always kind of felt like Wild Bill had some serious PTSD in the end of his life, whatever whatever you want to call it. So yeah, this dream, this metaphor for his life, whatever you want to call it, yeah, I can so totally see it and it just affecting him like this. And then you have Crazy Horse's daughter being killed by it, and so he kind of loses his name, and he has to basically go hunt this down. So you've got these two of the best known Wild West people, real people,
Yeah.
on a collision course, and that's the part I really liked. Um, I thought it did, that was a good, and their friendship was believable, and even though both of them kept, if you will, their true identities from one another till the very end.
Yeah. I
Well,
think that.
both
Sorry.
of them. But no, I was going to say, I got the impression both of them had a pretty good idea who the other one was long before they ever said anything.
I like how the story builds toward that too. Like we see, even though this movie is supposed to be more about Hickok to a degree, it does sort of give the movie to both characters, to both historical characters, where you're telling the story of Crazy Horse a bit, and you're telling the story of Wild Bill Hickok. Which, when I first watched this a year ago, I was not expecting that. So, and I watched it at the time. It was getting ready to leave Tubi. I was like, okay, I need to watch this again because I hadn't watched it in a while. But I like how you're getting Hickok's journey, and when he gets into town, there are people who recognize him and try to kill him. And this this woman wants to, who comes, she's just like, I love how there's this relationship with him, but then to everybody around him, it's like he's very, I don't know how to put this. He's so, Charles Bronson is so stoic. Like he's so quiet at times that it's criminally good. Like it's when he Bronson can talk, but when Bronson's not talking and he's just like letting the room play out, it makes the movie even better.
Yeah, there's something to be said for an actor that knows when to keep his mouth shut. And
Yeah,
something to be said for the same actor who can say something without saying. Leonard Nimoy, I thought, was great with that back in the original Star Trek. Without resorting to the it's like, this is most unfortunate. And Charles Bronson just kind of. I tell you what's funny. My wife watched part of this with me, and she goes, "My God, he never ages, does he?" Talking about Charles Bronson. Like, no, his hair got gray. That's about it. You look at him from, say, uh, not Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven, and then you look at him in Death Wish 27 or whatever. His hair's gray. That's really about it.
you want to really do a really time mess with the lovely Mrs. Rosenbaum. Have her watch this. Have her watch this. Well, she's watched part of it, and then show her Death Wish 4, which is made at the tail end of the 80s, and how Charles Bronson is like, wait, did time stand still for Chuck here?
I mean, you look at the older stuff. House of Wax, I think, was his first big film as Charles Bukowski. He looks different there, but then you still, he doesn't really. He kind of, as they used to say, he looked old, and then he didn't age.
It's weird because he started off in commercials as well. When you see him in commercials for like these camera bulbs, it's like, see, I'm of the age, like I can't picture Bronson without a mustache.
Yeah,
Like, but even like, now I give Once Upon a Time in the West the pass, and like there's other movies where he doesn't have that because he's playing the character that doesn't have one. But like I'm so used to like the mustache Bronson era. It's,
I don't want to bring myself into this, but there are people that I've gone to high school with. I mean, I had a mustache in like eighth grade, seventh or eighth grade, and I just kept it because I had a still do have a real baby face, and
yeah.
that's why I've almost always had facial hair. And there's people I've known for 20, 30 years, and I haven't gotten it in a while, but used to I get this wild hair and shave it off, and they look at me and go, "God, I've never seen you without facial hair," and it's not quite the Clark Kent into Superman, but it sure does. Wow, you sure do look different.
I do love how the fact that they assembled a nice enough cast here, but it's not like they loaded this movie with star power either, other than Bronson himself is sort of more, carrying the movie by name. But they do get some notables. There's the one guy, I think his name's Ed Lauer, who's one of the people trying to kill Bronson's character in this. He was in Death Wish 3 with Charles Bronson. He played the police chief or the police
Oh,
captain, if you will. He was also in Death Hunt with Bronson. So he's been in a couple movies with Charles Bronson. Um, Slim Pickens is in this movie. John Carradine is in this movie.
yeah, it's a good cast. I'm sneaking and looking at it down here on my phone. Will Sampson, who I don't want to tell John Wayne otherwise, but growing up, Will Sampson was Hollywood's favorite Indian.
Yeah.
Jack Warden as Charlie Zane, Slim Pickens, Kim Novak, Clint Walker, Stuart Whitman, John Carradine. I realize a lot of people may not look at that and go, "Well, that's a bunch of great names." I recognize all those names, and I was watching it. The credits are. I'm like, "Holy cow, this movie's loaded!"
It is.
A lot of good character actors. Because I swear I did not recognize Kim Novak as what is it, Poker Jenny. Good Lord, what a name! Um, but I just yeah, good actors all through. I mean, maybe nobody's going to win an Oscar, but you're going to get a good performance out of them.
Now I classify this as a snow western for the simple fact is we get at a lot of it at the I'd say at the end is in the snow, but for a lot of part of it too, you do see towns and certain open country where there isn't snow. You see, I love how they use the mountains. There's like the mountains without the snow, and
Yeah.
then they have mountains with the snow. And I love how there's two different. I believe there's two different Indian tribes in this as well, if I'm not mistaken. There were, I want to say, Crow Indians, and there was another set of Indians in this as well.
I believe Crazy Horse was Lakota, which is normally known as, or formerly known as the Sioux.
Yep.
I always found it funny when I got older, and a lot of people, for anybody that doesn't know, I live in East Tennessee. A lot of people that are from East Tennessee and their family's been here a while. I don't know if it's all just family mythology, but a lot of people would think slash are told they're descended. There's some Cherokee around in them around here. So I've always been a little bit interested in Native American. I guess I shouldn't say Indian anymore. But so getting into it, and then you find out, the Sioux didn't call themselves the Sioux. They called themselves the Lakota. Sioux is a word by the Choctaw or whoever that meant enemy. I mean, a lot of the terms that we grew up using is like those people or enemy or the guys we hate, and it's like, it's like I used to always think, God, only white people would be so dumb to go, "Hi, people we don't like. How are you? Let's be friends."
Yeah, we see. I'd be like trying to use like the symbol like that Vader used in wrestling, like peace. Like no.
That brings up an interesting point. The sign language that was used between Charles Bronson and Will Sampson when they would talk. And, I don't know how much of the Native American language that Will Sampson used was real and how much of it was just, hey, hey, hey.
Right.
But the sign language, I don't know it, but just looking at the words and the movements, I felt like that was probably pretty, kind of close. If they were just making it up, I thought they did pretty good because even if you didn't know what they were saying, you could follow, You and I eat together.
Yeah.
I think it just, if it wasn't real, they did a good job.
Yeah, I think the communication of the choreography is done. I agree with you. Is done really well in this movie, especially like when they're at that campsite in the mountains and stuff. And the guy he's with, the guy Bronson's with, or the guy, God, the guy Wild Bill Hickok is with, wants to kill Crazy Horse. Not that he knows who it is in a sense, but
No, he uses some rather unfriendly words about him too.
yes,
I realize it was the '70s, but wow, that's Jack Warden,
yeah, he
another actor recognize from a lot of stuff.
he yeah. We will not repeat those terms.
And I'm not defending it, but you know as well as I do, you grew up around your grandparents. Older folks will something, and especially when they get to the point where it's like, screw it, I don't have to be nice to anybody. We'll revert to bad habits that the younger generation goes. But yeah, he's wanting to kill him every time. He's like, let's shoot. You want me to shoot him? You want me to shoot him? To me, there should have been a point where Crazy Horse looked at him and goes, try it, old man. Try it. I mean, it's not like, hey, while he's gone, you want me to? He's like, hey, Joel, you want me to kill that guy over there? He's right there. You want me to kill him? Dude.
Yeah, I do. I sort of think the writers did not put that in there because I sort of think the writers went, well, if we do that if we do it too soon, because there's a point in this movie, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched it, you should watch this. This is really a great, entertaining movie. Is that Bronson's character of Wild Bill Hickok and Crazy Horse really bond by the end of this movie. And you can see how Bronson's Wild Bill Hickok has a lot of respect for the warrior that is, Crazy Horse, even though they're leading you on that Wild Bill Hickok doesn't know it's Crazy Horse, but he's, like you said, he suspects, but he admires that he's alone. He says, I want to kill the white buffalo. I do believe he calls it something else, but with Wild Bill Hickok, he's hunting this same white buffalo. And really, the one thing you get from this movie right away too is from Wild Bill's Hickok standpoint, from Charles Bronson's character standpoint, is a lot of the buffalo have gone extinct. So he's not sure if he's really hunting the buffalo to the degree, or if he's hunting a ghost almost, where it's to the point of, well, is there even a buffalo to hunt? You sort of get that sense from Bronson that, in my opinion, that he's wondering it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and yeah, whatever the name is that Crazy Horse uses, the implication I got, it seemed like there was a point where he calls him a demon.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, you're kind of getting beyond two men going to hunt a buffalo, which, that can be kind of interesting, but also can be kind of, Here you have, both of the requests are moving toward a more mystical, religious, supernatural, whatever you want to call it, point in their lives. Because Wild Bill feels like he's either going to kill the buffalo or he's going to die. Crazy Horse wants to kill it so he can take its fur and something about wrapping it around his daughter's body, and then she'll be okay in the afterlife. So I mean, both of them. It's not like, hey man, you want some ribs? It's both of them have points for coming after this, and it's not just a random, hey, let's go kill some buffalo.
Yeah, this isn't about so much of a game hunt as it is about one one man's legacy is on the line in Crazy Horse, and his to honor his tribe and his daughter, and to get his name back. And one man is, hey, like you pointed out beautifully, hey, I'm either going to kill it or it's going to kill me. One of us is going to walk away, and that's what. And I love Wild Bill Hickok's, Charles Bronson's mindset of that, because it really drives him throughout this movie to find this thing. That is really his driving force. And when he comes upon someone else who wants to find it as well, and that's sort of where you keep hearing certain people say they've seen it, they've seen it, they've seen it, and he's like, okay, where? And when they go, I love how they use the snow in here. The snow is it's so beautifully shot. Like the cinematography we've talked about in these westerns are just, it's beautiful, but there's just beautiful scenery in certain westerns where you go, by God, they shot this right, and it wasn't something they shot wrong. It's just, again, from the towns to I believe the one town they went to, there was like this big place where everybody had gathered, and then when they go out of there, there's these mountains that don't have snow at all. It's like a dry mountain top, but then there's these other mountains where there's snow, and the one mountain where there's like no snow is when there's these rocks that come down, and that's also the buffalo that causes that as well. But there's with the snow mountains, I love how they sort of use the white buffalo like a ghost. You sort of might see it, but they don't show it right out, which I think really builds towards the anticipation of actually seeing the thing again. Because the only time we've really seen it is in Bronson's dream.
Right.
You know, we haven't seen it outside of the dream. So it's like the one thing I took away from that of the dream was, well, is it going to be like Bronson's Hitchcock pit or Wild Bill Hickok pictured it like in his dream, or is it going to look a little different? Because we hadn't seen it since then, and when we do see it, I mean, it's massive. I don't think it's cringe, you know what I mean? I do think it looks good for for the time this movie is made.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you ever watched the original King Kong.
Yeah.
Does it compare to the effects in the Peter Jackson from what, 04, 05? No, of course not. But that's not the point of it. You know, if sometimes you have to be able to, nothing else, just turn back in your brain and go, okay, this is the best they could do at the time, and pay attention to everything else. And we'll see what else the story is telling you, what these people are trying to tell you. I mean, these are some good people telling a good story, and I really enjoyed it. So it well, there's one of the things I really like is the friendship that comes between them. Crazy Horse, who at the time he gets stripped of his name and basically is told, kill the white buffalo or don't come back. And he gets jumped by another tribe. I don't remember who. And Bronson helps him out, or Hickok helps him out a little bit. And they're like, he's like, thanks. You know, basically, I'm paraphrasing here. Thanks. You want to come with me? Nah, I'm good. Thanks, though. Well, then Hickok gets jumped by some people who are trying to kill him. And Crazy Horse saves him. So they kind of save each other. And you know, some people might watch it and go, that's kind of hokey. I'm like, it worked for this film. It worked. You don't need some great big. That's one of the things that I hate about some movies. It's like, it can't be Superman during one day saving a cat out of a tree, stopping a bank robbery, stopping some minor villain, and he goes home and eats dinner. It's got to be the end of the freaking universe. You know, they say, it doesn't always, the stakes don't always have to be up here. You can tell a good story with the stakes down here when you have good actors and good writing. And to me, that's a good example. This is a good example of that.
I think what this movie does really well, to your point too, two characters who come to one understanding, that they both understand each other's, struggle of what they're trying to accomplish by killing the same animal. And there are movies that don't have that exact message, but they have a similar. One of my favorites is when the late Kevin Conroy, got R.I.P., who voiced Batman, and Tim Daly, who had voiced Superman, when they had first crossed paths. And there's a movie where Batman is spying on Superman, and Superman, who is Clark Kent, is like looks down and he can see Batman off in the distance. And that's when he confronts Batman and then sees underneath it's Bruce Wayne, and Bruce Wayne says, "You peeked." And that's done so much better than any live action I've seen of Batman Superman. I mean, that's a cartoon I'm talking about, but it builds towards these two people who have an indifference but understand each other's struggle in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And same thing here. They know they're both to be enemies in a sense, but they understand each other's struggle and end up saving each other's life. So it's like the storytellers are building a respect between two known historical figures that's really well told throughout this movie. And really, it's really well told because before they ever really meet, they're telling you two separate stories where it starts off two separate paths that are going toward each other. And it's really, really well done.
Yeah. And for anybody that's just overwrought that, this never happened and this story never happened, well, they take care of that in the end. They when they admit their identities to one another, and it's like, if I see you again, I won't see my brother. I will see just another white man, and you won't see your brother. You'll see just another red man. And so, it's one of those for a season stories, if you will.
Right. I think that's the thing, that though there are, to be clear, there are historical accuracies in this movie, like we've talked about with Hickok's wear attire. There are historical inaccuracies as well.
Hey, I'm sorry, man. I'm going to have to cut this short. My thing here is about to run out of power, and I got to get charged. I'm sorry. It's running down on me. I thought it was charged. It's not.
It's all right, Butch. Is there anything you want to add before you go? I'm sorry.
Check it out, folks. What is it on Tubi? It's on somewhere free?
It was on Tubi. I don't know if it's still on there, but check out White Buffalo of Charles Bronson. Really, really great movie. See you next week, Butch.